Excitement. Yeah, here we are then. So we've started. Hey everyone, it's me, the Grey Man, here again, joined by my super special guest who's going to share some comic memories with me out there in wilds of Wisconsin, where the trains roam free. It's Magic Lasso, not Lasso, Lasso.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on today.
No problem, mate. Happy to chat to everyone in the comic community. And I'm guessing from what I've seen of your videos and what I know of you, might be a Wonder Woman or two on the show in your memories today, maybe?
There might be.
Possibly.
But sometimes people are a little surprised that I do enjoy more than just Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And kind of actually Bronze Age is just my wheelhouse, and that's what I just truly love and gravitate towards. So just about anything Bronze Age, I'm a huge fan of. But before we get started, I don't know if you've heard, we had some breaking news that actually kind of a little bit ties into Wonder Woman. And actually, it's sad news today. An actress, Cloris Leachman, has passed away at the age of 94. And her connection to Wonder Woman, very famous actress, best known for the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Facts of Life, Dancing with the Stars. But her connection to Wonder Woman was in the 1975 Wonder Woman pilot movie. She was cast as Queen Hippolyta.
Okay.
So she was the very first Queen Hippolyta on what became the Linda Carter TV series. And casting her on that show was a huge deal for according to the producers of this show, because it gave it credibility. Now, she only did the original pilot. She wouldn't play Queen Hippolyta in the future episodes, but apparently she got paid quite well to do it. And very sad that we lost Cloris Leachman today at the age of 94 from natural causes. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that in case some folks in the chat hadn't heard the news yet.
Right. I'm not familiar with that actor. I've heard of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, but I'm not sure if it made it over here much. I've actually, like, Wonder Woman, like the TV show, was one of my early sort of superhero memories. Obviously, Batman TV show came first, and then the Wonder Woman serial will spin around. And I think as a young lad, she obviously Linda Carter, is it? She sort of opened some new doors of thoughts to me at that age. I think it's like, oh, she looks nice, doesn't she? I like her. She looks cute. Well, I don't know what I thought, but I remember thinking, obviously the superhero stuff was good, but I think deep down as well, there was some kind of like first thoughts of love or something, like burgeoning in my heart or whatever. I've not watched it yet, but I'm a bit lazy. I've got this as a birthday present, or Christmas present, a couple of years ago now. I've not even cracked the blinking cellophane.
It's good. It's you'll find that episode with Cloris Leachman in there. It'll be the very first one that you'll watch.
Yeah. So it's 3 seasons in the end.
Yeah, it was 3 seasons.
It's one of those shows I remember watching it all the time, but I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in any of the seasons or even any of the characters, because it was so long ago. It's just like a little inkling of a memory. It never got repeated much on the TV or anything like that. Not like the Batman show you could see quite often, and the Batman movies. This one I don't think was ever repeated, apart from later on we got cable TV and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny that with that TV show, I'm old enough to remember right at the very end of that show. But it's funny that the biggest memory I have of actually watching that TV show in first run, I had the chicken box so I wasn't in school in kindergarten, and I got to stay home, and I remember watching Wonder Woman on a Friday night and finding a huge chicken pox on the back of my leg. So that's one of my memories. And also, I recall Wonder Woman doing this huge jump off of a building, landing on the pavement and running after a car. But every time that I've rewatched the entire series, I cannot find that episode. But I very well have this engraved in my memory of remembering that. Same thing if you remember the Challenge of the Super Friends cartoon. There's a scene I remember with Wonder Woman. Of course, this is animated, but it's Wonder Woman fighting Cheetah. And I have a recollection of a scene that apparently does not exist. But in my mind, I distinctly remember this, and I'm not sure why.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's Super Friends, like, because we never got that over here. I've never seen. No, I've never seen a single issue of the Super Friends. But I mean, so many people talking about it, and it's so like big in the memories of people of a certain age, kind of thing. But all I remember, all these I've mentioned this before when I've had comic chats, is the adverts in the middle of comic books. All these cartoons you were getting in America, and nobody look and go, "Oh man, you lucky sods! We don't get none of these. I wish I could have these cartoons showing on a blinking Saturday morning. Instead, we got like 2 or 3 cartoons, maybe."
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about your comic memories anyway, which is what we're here about. Do you remember how you got into comics and the superhero or whatever genre you into initially?
I can't specifically say what it was that that triggered me into becoming a comic book collector, but I've been a comic book collector from as far back as I can remember. And I remember superheroes being around me everywhere I looked. You know, I grew up in an era where superheroes were on color forms, they were on shrinky dinks, they were on wallpaper, they were on bedspreads, you know, they were on shoes, the flicker sandal shoes. Anywhere you look, underoos, anywhere you look, superheroes were on products. Yeah. So Marvel and DC both. And that's probably how I got introduced to them. I do know that the Super Friends cartoon was a huge influence on me. Probably, if I had to guess, that's probably what got me started buying comic books. And as I said, I've been a comic book collector as far back as I can remember. At least from the age of 4, I started buying comic books, which I still have those in my collection. And right now, I'm around 4,600 comic books in my collection.
So fair amount. So you don't remember your first comic book that you bought?
No, I know my first Wonder Woman comic book, but I don't know my actual first comic book. I know that I had Wonder Woman either in Super Friends or a Justice League comic book before I ever had it. I didn't know she had her own book, and I was shocked to find that out. But I definitely know that between the cartoons and the Linda Carter TV show, I was very, very enamored with superheroes and specifically that character. I see Comics for Thomas is in the chat, and he said to me one time, you know, did I pick that character or did that character pick me? You know, I kind of think that she picked me. So.
All right, let's go. I'm gonna put you full screen. You want to show us your first comic that you want to tell us about today? Awesome. Your first comic memory.
Awesome. So when I was putting together a list, and I think this is going to surprise people, when I was putting together a list of what comic books invoke the biggest memories from me, the book I'm going to show you first is the very first one that came to my mind. And surprise, surprise, it's a Marvel book.
Right. Okay, all right. Is that Death of Phoenix?
It's the issue before. It's Uncanny X-Men 136, Child of Light and Darkness. Now, the reason that I picked this, I think I know the store that I actually bought it at. But I do remember opening up this book, and I would read it, and this was my introduction to Phoenix. I had no idea who this woman was. I knew that she was in a lot of peril. I knew that she was very well loved. But I knew that there was something different about this comic book from any other comic book that I had owned. And without knowing it, I guess I could tell that it was better than most comic books that I owned at this time. And I didn't get the follow-up issue. I didn't get another issue, I think, until 140. And Jean Grey and Phoenix were gone at that point. And I didn't know what happened to this woman. I didn't know what happened to this character. And you know, there was no internet back then to try to find out. And I just remember being in shock. And I just remember looking at this cover over and over and over and over again. And I know that this cover has been used, you know, in other titles too, like this. I mean,
oh yeah.
But I'm very drawn to this too. Maybe it's because it brings back memories of this X-Men cover.
What's the name for those covers? It's like an art. Was it a
yes,
name they've got from, isn't it? Like Piero or something weird like that. Something like that. Ranger Slayer, tell us in a second.
Oh, I know. I've seen it on Comic-Gories.
Pietro.
Pietro?
Like
no, not
something like that.
Pietro is Wanda's brother.
Yeah, Quicksilver.
But this book and like I said, just so drawn to Phoenix. And the Dark Phoenix story is one of my all-time favorite comic book stories Now, later on, I grew up in a very small town, of 900 some people, no fast food, no stoplights, definitely no comic book stores. Although there were 2 stores in town that sold comic books, but not like a dedicated comic book store with back issues. The nearest one to me would be an hour away. And I'd occasionally get to travel there. And when you would walk in that door, the entire store smelled like old comic books. That smell, yeah. The entire store smelled like that, and I was like, "Wow!" And they had this amazing selection of back issues, and I was able to fill in some back issues from X-Men. I remember 137 was one that I got rather quickly, but back then, that book, I might have $10 to get to go to the comic book store with, which back then was a lot of money. And I would usually I would divvy up about $3 to new and current issues. And then I would spend, $7 or ish. So I think that's it, Ranger Sly. That's it. I would devote about $7 to back issues. But the Death of Phoenix, that was at that time was like a $5 or $6 book. So that ate up pretty much my back issue budget. But that book was certainly worth it. The entire Dark Phoenix saga was worth it to me. And for a while, I had pieced together certain issues. It starts in X-Men 129, the first appearance of Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost. And I had like 129, and then I think I had 135, 136, 137. And eventually I got 130 because I like Dazzler. But this was a very important storyline for me and certainly brings back memories.
Yeah, I'm kind of like with the X-Men. I remember reading the X-Men, but I don't know. I remember reading the Dark Phoenix and her dying and coming back, and I've got no idea if I had the comics and somehow they went missing, or I had one friend who was into comic books and he collected X-Men as well. Maybe I've read his comics, or maybe I read UK reprints or something like that. But it's one of those things I look back as a mystery, because I know I remember reading them stories, but I don't have anywhere near that far going back, and it's like he just. So I remember the kind of the stories happening, but I'm like, where happened to them comics? Did I have them comics and lose them? It's just a bit of a mystery, and they're too expensive for me to pick up now. And so I just got like reprints, like a collector or something like that. But I've got them written down on my list to get, but I'm waiting for like a massive lottery win or something like that before I ever consider picking them up. There's plenty of others that I want to get before then anyway. So it's like, it is what it is.
Did you get to see the X-Men animated series from the 1990s when they did the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga? Did you get to see that?
No, we had that cartoon did come over here. I'm not sure what channel it was on, but I didn't watch a great deal of them. I don't think I was probably a bit old by then. I was probably too busy going to the pub and headbanging at gigs and stuff like that. I mean, I was still collecting, getting loads of comics, but I don't remember seeing the cartoon much. It might have been on Sky, like on satellite, something like that. I might not have had it. I was aware that it was on, but I never actually followed it much.
It's probably the best depiction that we've had yet. It's certainly better than the cinematic movies that have been done on the Dark Phoenix story. But the cartoon, although they have to change the ending a little bit because Jean can't pass away on a Saturday morning cartoon for children. So they changed
the object of the story.
Yeah, so they changed the ending, but it's probably the best interpretation that we've gotten outside of the comic book of the storyline.
I mean, my memories of the X-Men as well is like Cyclops was one of my first sort of early favorites. I really like Cyclops for some reason. I don't know why. I always say it's because I was getting bullied for having the big googly eyes, and Cyclops could fire lasers out of his eyes. And I was thinking, why can't I do that? It must be some kind of superpower associated with having big googly eyes, but nothing's manifested itself yet. But I don't wear glasses, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, my mutant eye power is that my eyes never get less than 20/20 or whatever. So fingers crossed and touch wood and all that.
Yeah. So very important book for me though. The story that, and this part of the story too, because this is so centered on Jean and it's so centered on the Dark Phoenix and the Phoenix Force and turning dark. And man, I wish it hadn't ended an issue later, come to the climax of the story. I know that they were on a roll and just kept going and going, but I wish that they could have slowed down a little bit to give us even more of it, because I just love it so much. Yeah. But like I said, even as a child, I realized there was something different about this comic book that, it wasn't like the other.
The writing was up there compared to some of the others, you reckon?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people do say that here, and the writing was exceedingly good. But here's a question for you: like, as that being a really important comic to you and a really important storyline, her dying, her sacrificing herself, when she was resurrected, as she, obviously was, did that cheapen the story for you, or does it make you look back on that story that was so fond as a child that when I can think less of it or differently about it because the fact that she doesn't stay dead?
No, not really, because she was gone for, quite some time. And when they brought her back, I don't know, I just love the character so much. And when they did bring her back, it wasn't as Phoenix. They brought her back as Jean Grey first. So it still was a little bit different. And I like Jean Grey. I like Marvel Girl, but I love Phoenix. Phoenix is my jam. So
okay, so it has to be Phoenix. It's not just her; it's the actual Phoenix.
I like her, but I like Phoenix better.
Right.
But at that time, I didn't. At that time, there wasn't a difference between Jean Grey and Phoenix.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Force didn't exist. But yeah, I really like Phoenix, the Phoenix Force.
So what she changed the name to Phoenix, and then the Phoenix Force came later after that, did it?
Well, the Phoenix Force actually happened all at once, but they didn't know it at the time. That's something that later on, when they would do the stories, they would come back and say, it really wasn't Jean. It was the Phoenix Force that essentially cloned Jean, but we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, so they retcon, didn't they, and make a different excuses. And wasn't there one point she was in a blinking cocoon, wasn't she, in the bottom of the ocean? And I think it was FF, was it? Was it FF she was discovered in, or Alpha Flight?
It was FF. It was a whole series of FF and Avengers tie-in and stuff that led to the beginning of X Factor.
Yeah.
and something that people don't know is the decision to bring Jean in to X Factor was a very last minute decision. As a matter of fact, originally the female in X Factor was going to be Dazzler. That was the original plan, was it to be Dazzler.
Right. Fair enough. And I always like, with my superheroes, I don't know if it was from being, I don't know, young and angsty or something, but I always want them to be lucky in love. And I really love the fact that him, Cyclops and Jean had that relationship. And when I hear that nowadays, later on, Wolverine come in, Wolverine I liked when he first came along because he was cool. One of the things that makes me hate him is the fact that he's like trying to get between Jean and Cyclops all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, get your own bleaky girlfriend. What's up with you? Go away.
I think that's why comics are so great, that there's a little something for the adult reader, because as a child didn't care about that, never really looked for that, never really thought about that. So makes it universal. It's cool.
That was as a young person I used to think that. Now I always wanted the heroes to be like, maybe because I was like, I want a girlfriend. Oh, we'd like to have a girlfriend. I mean, a little kind of thing. So I always like Hal and Carol Ferris is always like, oh, why can't there be? And most of the girls were just there to like. So they had to hide their secret identity and that kind of thing, and to get into trouble so they could go and save them and that kind of thing without giving away their secret identity. That was mostly the DC stuff, though. They had a lot more of that going on. I suppose Spider-Man did quite a bit where he'd have to save Aunt May without her knowing it. He was really doing it, that kind of thing.
And she didn't like Spider-Man. The irony of that, she's like that icky Spider-Man that they write about in the newspapers.
Yeah. J. Jonah Jameson. What about? Are you still reading X-Men now? Do you? How long was you? No. How long did you collect it for? Did you collect it like a full run, or just picked up ones when you felt you like it?
I started. I made a full run, probably about 170 through 220-ish. So, and then I was picking up whatever I can before then. There's still some spaces that I need to fill in, and I'm still working on that too. I got to tell you, oh my gosh, we could do a show on me called Comic Book Regrets. And I'm going to tell you a huge regret. And when I've never talked about this, and when people in the chat see this, oh man. So when I was in high school, I was offered a chance to buy a box of X-Men comic books from a teacher. He was going to sell me. Now he said it was the complete collection at the time, which would have been probably to like issue at that time probably one. No, it probably would have been in the 200s. And he said it's complete. Now, I looked through them. There were a few that were missing, but there was an X-Men 1 in there. I don't think that there was a giant-size X-Men. I don't think that was in there. There was an X-Men 94 in there. He was going to sell me this entire lot of books for $200, and I said no.
How long ago was that?
Now, this was high school, so this has been a while. This has been a couple decades.
So
but $200 was a lot different back then than it is now.
More.
I still, right now at night, lay awake and go, you could have had all of this.
Does it make you wake up in a cold sweat? Like, why didn't I buy them? Why didn't I buy them comics? I find that I'm always like, especially when I watch other people who've picked up something really good in a haul or managed to pick up something like oh, I don't know, so number one for like $1 or something like that. And it's just like, I see them and I'm just like, I could be walking down the street and daydreaming. Like someone walking down the road with a short box and suddenly say, hey, do you want to buy a short box of comics? And it happens to be full of massive keys for like 10 quid. I just have daydreams and like dreams about that all the time. Like wishing, touching wood and praying that, this sort of magic, happy coincidence will happen. But nothing so far.
I know not one, but two people, that have bought giant-size X-Men number ones for $1 each. Why can't that happen to me?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you 10.
Yeah. I'm always thinking, oh, I'm so happy for you. What must it be?
Yeah, same here. I'm happy for them, but man, I need that.
I'm happy for them, but I've been happier if it had been me. But there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on with your next comic book, because we've got 20 minutes already just whittling away about comic books.
I know, honestly. I'm a talker. I am a talker. Who is Donna Troy? This is New Teen Titans number 38. And this is the second Who is Donna Troy story that has been done. There's been, for those that aren't familiar with DC and Teen Titans, Who is Donna Troy is something they've done many, many, many times in many, many different volumes and issues as they've reworked her origin.
She's been retconned more than Paragon, I think.
Yes. This book, I just reread this last year. I hadn't read it in quite some time. It still is an emotional read for me today. This is a comic book that makes me emotional. It is so well done. It's that Marv Wolfman, George Perez teamwork that just one complements the other. And the story and the origin is amazing. And obviously being a Wonder Woman fan, I'm also a fan of Wonder Girl, which is Donna Troy. I particularly love it when Donna Troy is wearing her red jumpsuit.
Yeah.
I really like that. But this story, I have to say that the first time that I ever read a Donna Troy origin, a who is Wonder Girl origin, in the beginning, it always starts out with there's Wonder Woman saves this baby from this fire. And this goes to show you got to remember, I'm a little kid at this time. I'm 7 years old, maybe. I would constantly try to figure out, well, what comic book was that where she saved that little girl from the fire? And it never occurred to me. It's just something that they made up, and they never actually showed it in a previous issue that it happened, off camera, so to speak.
Okay.
But I would constantly try to find what comic book had, I figured, well, it must have been a comic book from 15 years ago because she's a teenager or whatever, and it never happened. They needed an origin. They said, oh, Wonder Woman saved her from a fire one time. But I just assumed that because they said it, it must have been published somewhere in a comic.
Yeah.
But
normally when it's things like that, if it was in another comic book, there's the little bit in the bottom saying, as seen in so-and-so number, so-and-so. Yeah.
And, there never was footnotes for that. But I guess it was growing up, I thought, well, if you say something, even if the footnote isn't there, it must have happened.
Yeah.
So, and this issue is so Wonder Girl heavy that it's about Dick Grayson going through the wreckage of this burned down building, trying to see if he can find a clue as to the identity of Donna Troy, Wonder Girl. And I
read that one.
Yeah, he does find one that provides a lead that they previously didn't have. But it's only Wonder Girl and Dick Grayson, Robin, in this story, with Starfire in one cameo with her picture in a picture frame. And that's it for characters. it's of the Teen Titans. I mean, it's so centric on this, and still one of my ultimate favorite reads to this date. Still an emotional book for me to read.
Is that just a single issue? That one?
Yeah,
Because
it's just a one issue storyline.
There was a 3-issue one, wasn't there? Where it started off who is Donna Troy, then it was like who is Wonder Girl, who is Troya. So I think that was another one that I remember reading at one point. That's when have you got her first appearance? When did she first appear? Was it in the Brave and the Bold when the Teen Titans, or was it before that?
It was now the Teen Titans, although they weren't called the Teen Titans at that time, it was Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad appeared in Brave and the Bold 54. But the first time they were billed as the Teen Titans was Brave and the Bold 60. And that has Donna Troy, Wonder Girl. I do have that book.
Okay.
I bought it as a back issue. Now that gets a little bit complicated as well, because at this time in the Wonder Woman titles, there was something called the Impossible Tales. And that is Wonder Woman teaming up with her teenage self, Wonder Girl, and herself as a baby, Wonder Tot, and her mother all at the same time. And they would have adventures. and they claimed it was done with like Amazonian technology or film spliced together or some weird Silver Age answer like that. But that's how they claim that it happened. But then they need a Wonder Girl. So here's this Wonder Girl that looks just like the Wonder Girl that you saw in the Wonder Woman Silver Age comic books. But she can't be, because that's Wonder Woman as a teenager. So how do you figure this out? And it took a while before they created their first origin, and her first origin was created by Marv Wolfman. And that was in Teen Titans number 22 in the B story, where she reveals that she wasn't an Amazon. She was rescued from a fire as a baby. No word who these people were that were in the building with her. And she was taken to Paradise Island, became, given Amazonian powers and trained there. And that issue also on the very last page is where she debuts her red jumpsuit cover.
Right. Because, well, I don't know what her origin is now, but I mean, because how did she get, if she was just a human girl who was adopted or saved and then adopted, how did you get her super strength? How was that explained?
Well, they explained it back then as saying, I think that the Amazons use, I don't know if it was the purple healing ray or some other type of technology, but they enhanced her with powers so she wouldn't feel slighted growing up with sisters that could do all of these things that she could.
Yeah. And I think the most recent thing is she was a Titan, wasn't she? Wasn't it decided she was actually a descendant of the Titans?
Yes.
And the Titans of myth, because it's weird, because all the Titans of myth used to like appear and fight the Olympians every now and again in Titans. And then later on they decided that the Titans actually all live on a planet like miles away or something, and she was killed, wasn't she, by a Superman robot, which I thought was really
she was.
I thought that was like, no way would a Superman robot be able to kill her. I was thinking so with heat vision. And most of the time the heat vision hits us, ow, that burns, like that. But they wouldn't get like she was shot for the end of heat. I thought, no way, that doesn't make sense. It's just a Superman robot. Nah. Anyway, they did that. That was the thing that happened, and but then they brought her back. I don't know what's supposed to happen. She was beamed, I don't know, or reborn as on Titan or something strange like that.
And then they've done origins where she was a doppelganger, a mirror image of Diana, Wonder Woman. Right. So Diana could have a playmate when she was growing up on Paradise Island. But then she was kidnapped by Dark Angel, and who thought that she had kidnapped Diana, not the doppelganger. Right. So there was that origin too. There was another origin where she was inspired by the 1940s Wonder Woman, which would have been Hippolyta, who went back in time to become Wonder Woman to become Wonder Girl. So the reason there's all these who is Donna Troy is
why did she go back in time? Surely she was already around at that point anyway.
Well, see, when after Crisis, they established that Wonder Woman first came to Earth and America, not Earth, but first came to America, in 1987. She was a brand new superhero then.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Well,
so they tried to have then had the back.
They said, well, how could, then she can't have Justice League adventures. She wasn't in the Justice Society. How are you going to deal with this?
Yeah.
Well, John Byrne dealt with it by saying, Hippolyta had to do penance for crimes that she committed against Diana, actually. And her penance was she had to be the Wonder Woman. So she becomes Wonder Woman and did a go back in time adventure to the 1940s where she did become a member of the Justice Society. And her being in that inspired people like Donna Troy, who read and learned about her to become Wonder Girl. And Confused, so were the rest of us fans. So,
and we won't mention the Dark Stars because she was in Dark Stars for a while. She lost her powers, didn't she? Become a Dark Star. And let's not go on to Cassie Sands, Mark. Is it Cassie Sands, Mark, the new one? It's just like there's too many levels of confusion when we try and like piece all that together.
Yes, but if you want a good story to read, it's just a 1-issue arc. It's that Teen Titans 38, New Teen Titans 38. That's wonderful. She did. The earrings were also, at one time, were used if the Justice League was trying to communicate with her. Her earrings would buzz. So, I guess you work with what you have.
I believe in the very early stories, like her superpower was secretarial skills, wasn't it? And putting the coffee on, that kind of thing. But fortunately, they've moved on from there. But right, let's move on to your third comic as well. As soon as the comics have moved on, we'll move on with the next comic book.
Sounds good. So it's probably time that, since I'm 3 books in, I have not shown a Wonder Woman book yet. However, this one... it's a Wonder Woman book, but it's not at the same time.
Okay.
So we have DC Comics Presents number 9, a team up of Superman and Wonder Woman fighting this great ice creature here. And the reason that I picked this, as a matter of fact, I still have my original copy of it. This is the original first copy I ever had of this book. And I pulled the original copy out for a reason, because I wanted to show you a specific page
right
here. I remember taking this book to school as a kid and looking through it and just mesmerized by the artwork and seeing Superman and Wonder Woman. And there's a there's some panels in here. We have some Diana prints in there. See, Gray Man, over there, you had Princess Diana. Well, I always had Diana Prince. So, But one specific page I constantly would stare at, and it was this page with all those Superman and what way am I going? All those Superman and Wonder Woman running around, and sorry, I'm still getting used to my camera work here.
Yeah.
They would there we go. They're gonna fight this ice creature, but seeing that circle with all of them running around, and then I always thought that was just such a cool image. Not this page, but
I see it. I was concentrating on the little box underneath, but I see them on top now, running around in circles.
But I love this page so much. That I ended up being fortunate enough to own the original art to this page. Wow!
Who's the artist on that one?
That is Joe Staton.
Right.
And I actually own 3 pages out of this comic book.
Wow, that's cool.
And, it was my original goal, if I could, to own every page out of this comic book and complete it. That's not very feasible because the book's so old and original art's so expensive now. But I do own 3 pages that are in it. When I got the pages, and they're beautiful. If you think they look nice on the printed thing, you should see the actual artwork themselves. They're so beautiful. But the pages themselves were not signed by Joe Staton. Well, I thought, Joe Staton does a lot of conventions, and I thought someday I'm going to get him to sign these.
Yeah.
And in 2019, he was at C2E2 in Chicago, and I was going to it, and I thought, I'm taking these pages. I'm going to get these pages signed. So I went up to him, and he was so nice and so kind. And I talked about this issue and some of his other work that he had done, and talked about just the memories that it brings back to me. And he just stopped it. He just really listened to my story. And he said, people don't talk to me about my work the way that you just did. And he's like, that just made my day. And I said, well, I have something else that I think is going to make your day. I said, I have something that you have not seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
And he said, what's that? And I pulled out these 3 pages of original art. And when he got to that specific page, he's like, this is a good page. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is a good page. Yeah. And he signed all 3 pages for me. I've got photos of him signing them. And when we got done, we took a picture together. And when we got done, he said, I want a picture now for my camera of us together. And I thought that was really kind and sweet. And he ended up posting that on his social media too. So
that's cool.
it not only was it a great book for me that brings back so many memories, you know, because of those memories, I have another fantastic memory too associated with that. And I'm so appreciative of getting the chance to actually, even though I wouldn't have mind if someone got it signed for me, but that I was the one that got to tell him what that meant to me.
Yeah, and have the story. Did you shake the hand of that?
I did
as well. It's just like that's like the extra connection there. Like shaking the hand of through the picture
through that page. Yeah,
and then signed later. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I've got a slight confession to make. I've never bought any Wonder Woman comics. When I was as a kid, it was like Wonder Woman. I suppose because I was a boy, I collected the boy comics. Like, you know, that was always what it was for me. And I never really. The only time I think I got a couple of oldish Wonder Woman because Demon was in it. I saw Demon on the cover. Oh, I'm gonna pick them up because Demon's in it. Yeah. But I never had anything like I didn't dislike Wonder Woman, nothing like that. But just I don't know. There's just so many comic books out there, and I suppose I stuck to the guy comics because I was like a boy. You know, I want to read blokes. I don't know. I thought Wonder Woman was for girls to read, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? When you're a little kid, you don't know any better. But looking at like a lot of the covers and art now, it's kind of like, oh man, those look really cool. I wish I'd bought them. You know, I like the one when she had no powers for a while. I think she looks cool in all those kind of mod outfits and that. And a lot of those go for a big money. But one thing I was going to talk about, because it's nothing I never sort of considered or heard about until I sort of joined the comic community on YouTube. But all these bondage covers. Oh, yeah. I mean, massively, a lot of people seem to like collect them just because they're bondage. I never thought of them as bondage. I just thought of, the heroes are in trouble kind of thing. I never really thought of because bondage is a bit more like a sexual element to it, isn't it, kind of thing, rather than just like, you know, I never really considered that as a thing. But is that like a stigma attached to Wonder Woman, or is it?
Oh, no, that definitely is a stigma attached to it. And you're right. There are people, and I can even think of one person here in our Instagram comic book community that buys those covers specifically for the bondage reasons. But if you start to read about Wonder Woman's creator, William Marston, it certainly falls in line. He had some very progressive thinking. He had a very progressive relationship that he was in with two other women at the same time. All three of them were in a relationship together. And remember, this was the 1930s and 40s that this was happening. And for that to happen back then, that was something. And I mean, even after he passed, the two ladies stayed together. But there is a motion picture that was made a few years back about his life. Now, his family says that movie isn't exactly very accurate. No. And you know, I don't know. I'm not there. It's interesting for sure, but you can for sure do some reading about him. And quite honestly, a very smart man, because he created Wonder Woman. People think that's so little girls would have a role model. He created Wonder Woman for little boys. And the reason behind that is he envisioned a time that there would be a huge women's movement. Now, he thought it would happen in the 1970s. He was wrong. It happened in the 1960s. But he wanted little boys at a young age to be familiar with a strong female role, a hero. So that's why he created a superhero that was strong like that. There's been talk that, you know, he had written into his contract that if DC doesn't publish X amount of Wonder Woman issues a year, the rights to the character go back to the family, which would now be the estate. I'm
sure I've heard that. I've heard that before, like contiguous run or something like that had to do. I've definitely heard that information before. So one of the other things, Ranger Slide just mentioned it here, about he created the lie detector. I've actually looked that up. He created one element of the lie detector device. There's other elements that were created by other people, but one of the things that I can't remember what element it was. I think it was like the heart rate or something like that. He didn't make the whole thing.
No, but he contributed big to that. I mean, and stop and think about that. Isn't the Magic Lasso just a lie detector?
Exactly.
Essentially? I mean, it is. Yeah. And, you know, one of the women in his life she always wore these huge bracelets that covered, you know, the majority of her wrist area into her forearm. Yeah. And you look at that and there's actual photographs of this woman, and she's wearing it's just jewelry that she wore. It was her thing. And you see that and you say, well, that's Wonder Woman's bracelets. So very interesting man, very interesting story.
I think one of the things that people like joke about, and I think it was in the most recent film, the invisible plane was kind of a bit of a weird, like, sort of concept out of left field, considering everything else together.
Yeah, and I know you haven't seen the new movie yet.
No,
but
not yet. But I've heard.
There's kind of a nice little joke regarding the Invisible Jet, and I'll say that the way that they did the Invisible Jet for the movie was creative. Regardless of what you thought of the movie, it was creative the way that they incorporated that in, because that's such a huge part of Wonder Woman's mythos. And if there wasn't the Invisible Jet, how would Aquaman get places? Because I mean, that is his Uber.
Yeah, even out or in a Green Lantern bubble.
Yeah.
Or on the back, it'd be very slow to the fight if you had to ride on the back of a whale all the way to the other side of the world or whatever it was you'd be going to. But what was I going to say? I forgot. I was going to say something else now. I had something in my head and now I completely forgot what it was. To do with Wonder Woman, obviously. We was talking about the bullets. That's right. I was going to say it would make more sense if she rode some kind of mythological beast like a flying horse, a Pegasus. Something like that would make more sense with her Greek mythology kind of origins.
Yeah, but you would think so, but
flying plane, invisible plane. Was that supposed to have been like? Imagine if I could see it if like was the origin story originally that is it Steve Trevor came along in a plane and it crashed just outside Themyscira, and maybe if they like saw that and thought, well, it was interesting and made a magical one of the same but invisible. Is that the actual story of the invisible plane, or do you remember what
I remember from the original Invisible Plane? It was just that it was made from Amazon technology. You know, now that you say that, well, maybe they saw that plane, maybe that inspired them to do that. That's interesting. That's an interesting. I don't exactly remember that if it was. I just remember them saying, you know, essentially it was advanced Amazonian technology that made this plane. But apparently, all the Amazons knew how to fly it. I don't know where they were practicing at or where they were going when they were practicing. But
a question for Manny: do you know, did the Invisible Jet originate in the Super Friends TV series, or was it already existent in the comic books?
That's a great question. No, it goes back to the comic book, to the very first appearance of Wonder Woman. That invisible plane is there. That's how she got Steve Trevor back. So it goes back, to 1941 or 2.
Okay. As I remember with the Wonder Woman, but it's always hard as a kid to pronounce like Hippolyta and Themyscira. There was all like, bloody hell, these words are a bit long.
I know. I called Antiope Antiope.
Yeah, they're always tricky to freaking pronounce. But how close are you? Because you was going like a really extensive Wonder Woman run, wasn't you? And you were saying you've got like a target in mind, and you was only a few short of your hopeful target, weren't you?
Where I'm at right now is Wonder Woman Volume 1, Issue 98 is the first Silver Age appearance of Wonder Woman. And I am 3 issues away from having Wonder Woman 98 on up through each of her volumes, every issue. So I'm 3 issues away from having the entire Silver Age on up. And then I have a couple select Golden Age books too. And I'll tell you something, if you want to see a comic book bring tears to a person, on my YouTube channel, you can see me unboxing an AOK from Man Cave Comics, and that's where I got my Wonder Woman 98, the first Silver Age Wonder Woman.
I saw that one.
And there's tears. I mean, at that time I wasn't doing face videos, but you can hear it in my voice, and I didn't edit anything out. And comic books aren't supposed to make you cry, but that one did. So
I've definitely cried at comic books. We're mostly reading comic books. So I don't care to like it doesn't bother me to admit that I cry reading comic books, and more than one occasion, we'll have a little choke of a tear. And also like sometimes like when you see like a run that you've made to get together, you get like a pride, like oh man, like I was just going through my books the other day and I opened up my box. It's got all my Dial H for Hero runs in it. I was like, oh, I've got them all now. I was like, oh, I kind of remembered. Oh yeah, I was trying to get those for ages. Now I've got them all. I'm like, oh. You know what I mean? You put a little spring in my step kind of thing, like just to remember, just to realize I got those books that I liked so much. So that's always good.
I use the CLZ app and to catalog and database my comic book collection. And first of all, I love looking at other people's CLZ and see what books they have. Sometimes I see something they have and I go, oh, I want that book too, or I forgot that I wanted that book and I add it to my list. But I don't mean this to sound conceited, but sometimes I just look through my own CLZ and I'm like, look at what I completed. Look at, and especially when I look at the very top of it and it's like Champions issue 1-17. I'm like, complete. There's no commas in there. I'm like, I did it. It's stuff like that. So,
right, let's do a couple of side questions here. I want to go through from friends. How many boxes does that take to store?
Ooh, Simon, I'm in the process of rebagging and boarding and boxing right now. Right now I'm in long boxes. I probably need to go to short boxes at some point because it's. I actually showed on one of my live streams. I ripped out a pair of jeans bending down trying to pick up a long box. Right now there is my Marvel are in 5 long boxes. My Wonder Woman are in 4 long boxes. And then my DCs are probably in about another 4 or 5 long boxes. I haven't actually put them in the new boxes yet, but that's the way it's going to turn out to be, I think.
Well, another little question. What did you think of John Byrne's run on Wonder Woman?
Good question too. I like John Byrne's run. I like the fact that he played upon things that happened in her past. As I was talking about earlier, John Byrne reestablished that Wonder Woman, be it Hippolyta, was around in the 1940s. So that made her Justice Society stories canon. And I love that he gave that back to us. And there's things too, like you were talking about the demon being in an issue of Wonder Woman. Well, John Byrne put the demon in a couple. Yeah, he put the demon in a couple issues of Wonder Woman as well. Yeah. There's some, John Byrne is a little heavy on the guest stars, but it's not just in Wonder Woman. He seems to be a little heavy on the guest stars on any title that he works, and I think that's just his style, and I'm good with it. Some of his drawing. I mean, it's not like the X-Men that I showed at the beginning of the show anymore. It just isn't. Some of the art's good, and then there's some of the art that I'm like, come on, I think you kind of rushed through this. The fact that he only used 2 large stars on Diana shorts, but said there actually are all of the stars on her shorts, but she's moving so fast that people can only make out the 2 stars. And I'm like, no, that's lazy. That's lazy. Okay. Let's just call it, blame it and name it. But as for his run, I actually have very fond affection for his run.
Do you try and get all the other appearances of Wonder Woman, or just her runs? Because I'm thinking of a couple of demon appearances. If you're not aware of them, there's in the 3rd season of the series of the demon. One time he meets her and he plants a smacker on her lips straight away. As soon as he sees her, he goes out, gives her a big, she's like, bam! Obviously, seconds later, lays him out. And then later on, it's not actually Wonder Woman, but there's some janitor gets hold of a magic book. And the first thing he does to use it is make loads of clones of Wonder Woman to be his servants. And there's like a cool cover with demon fighting about 20. I
actually don't have those books. What I try to do is, like I said, I've got pretty much almost the full run, minus 3 issues of Silver Age Wonder Woman on up. But then I try to fill in her runs, her appearances that she made in other titles as I can. Obviously, since I just love the Bronze Age, I try to buy, first of all, Bronze Age stuff that she guest starred in, like Freedom Fighters. She was in 2 issues of Freedom Fighters. Adventure Comics, she was in a few issues of Adventure Comics, and World's Finest. I try to pick those up first. And in the 90s and stuff, there was a time I wasn't buying comic books. I kind of completely got out of it, which unfortunately was at the time that I was offered to buy that X-Men collection that I'm still crying tears over. I missed a lot of the guest appearances, but I'm starting to fill those in now. And I've gotten some great AOKs with Wonder Woman oriented stuff that isn't her main title. And that's perfect for me. So
questions coming thick and fast still. I don't want to miss anybody out. Is your favorite Wonder Woman artist or your top 5?
Okay. My number 1 favorite Wonder Woman artist is Jose Delbo. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. Still with us. He's in his 80s. And even though he's not drawing her now, he drew her for over 50 some issues. And Manny, thank you for the subscription to my channel. Certainly appreciate it. I just saw that come in. But he drew her for over 50 some issues. And that's the Wonder Woman that means the most to me. But, I'm a fan of a lot of Wonder Woman. That George Perez. I love his. I like Joe Staton. I like... oh my gosh, I like Garcia Lopez. Those are the artists that come to Alex Ross, of course. Who doesn't like Alex Ross stuff? Art Germ. I think Art Germ does a great Wonder Woman. Jenny Frison. She does a beautiful Wonder Woman. And even some of Wonder Woman's current artists now are really good. So who do you think is the current modern age artist that best represents her in art? Great question too, Gary. I would say Art Germ, Joshua Middleton, or Jenny Frison.
Yeah, I don't click that many modern books. I've seen him in other people's channels. Sometimes I see some of the Wonder Woman pictures, and I don't know, they look too like cartoony kind of. I don't know, I wouldn't know how to describe them. Obviously, she's a comic book, so she would look cartoony, but it's just something about them just doesn't look as good to me as the 80s, 70s kind of art. Just very sort of, I don't know how you describe it really, but it doesn't sort of hit me as like looking cool. If you know what I mean. You don't know what it is. It's just an X factor for your own personal taste. I always prefer looking at older art on comic books.
That ties in perfectly to the next book that I have.
That's good. It hits my comic funny bone, or whatever you want to call it.
So I chose, I had to choose a book from Wonder Woman's title itself, and I decided on 228. Now, I bought this as a back issue when I was a child, and this is the Earth 1 versus the Earth 2 Wonder Woman fighting each other. And one of the reasons that this issue is so significant is at the time, the Wonder Woman TV show just took off on ABC TV, which season 1 took place in the 1940s. So they wanted the comic books to reflect what was on the TV show at the time. So they did an issue where the modern day Wonder Woman ends up on Earth 2 and teams up with the Earth 2 Wonder Woman to take on this villain, Red Panzer. And then when the issue ended, it actually was a 2-issue storyline. But when this issue 228 ended, they just stuck in the Earth 2 era, and didn't worry about going back to Earth 1 with Wonder Woman. So the comics would be in sync with what was going on with the television show. And when the television show jumped back to the 1970s to modern day, they did another team up between the two, and then just took it back with the Earth 1 Wonder Woman when it was done. And another reason that I picked this, I'm spoiler ahead of time, I did not buy it. But one time I had the opportunity to buy the original art to this cover. And although it's a fantastic cover and I really thought about it, I thought that I just wanted a different cover, something maybe with a little more background or a little bit more detail in it, and possibly a different villain. And I did find that with a different comic that has Cheetah on the cover too. So I really lucked out. But this comic book certainly brings back a lot of great memories for me. I remember the day I bought it as a back issue at the comic book store an hour away. I mean, it was everything. It was so exciting. They would pull out the box and just let me flip through the box because the boxes were behind the counter. And I just flipped through the box. And a lot of times that's the first time I ever saw the cover to an issue before. I didn't know what the covers look like. And I remember seeing this one, even though this is the one I was going for, and going, I have to have that, and I did.
Yeah. That's the thing we haven't actually got yet. Did we touch on it? What got you into Wonder Woman? You like the TV show, we know that. But what was it that made you Wonder Woman comic fanatic? I
don't know. I don't know, because I am a collector as well of the merchandise and as well as the comic books, although I'm a little bit more focused on the comic books right now than ever before. But I do like the merchandise, and especially the vintage merchandise. And I don't know what it was. It's something about that character just spoke to me.
Yeah, you don't always know why a character speaks to you, or what's it. I can't say I've got a favorite character, but because people always ask, I always feel like I have to come up with something. So I always say either Blue Beetle or Demon or both of them, because they're like comic books I really enjoyed when I got them, like a certain run that I read of theirs. But it's like most characters, to be honest. There's a couple I don't like much, but there's like most of them I just like all of them. But I was going to talk about Wonder Woman. I remember now. So I also want to say about Wonder Woman. I bought like an 80-year box set of like 4 different graphic novels in it, different trades in it. And the early stuff was some like really cool, great stories. Like the Perez, I think, was the first lot from his run. And then towards the end, like the more modern ones, I was like, well, this didn't even make sense. I remember reading the story and I was like, that didn't even make sense. What kind of ending is that?
There's been a few of them. There's even been a few recently, a couple months ago, with Maxwell Lord being in the Wonder Woman 84 movie. They had comic books out with Maxwell Lord being the main antagonist in the story. And there was one issue that literally was so boring. I'm like, I just want my time back. Forget the money. I just want my time back. It's not good.
Yeah. It's a shame. Was that our fourth book or our fifth book you just
That
showed?
was our fourth. I have one more.
Okay. Well, I've got another question. Someone wants to know, right, someone who's barely read any Wonder Woman, what would you recommend them to pick up?
I would recommend you starting with Volume 2, Issue Number 1, the George Perez era. And, about the first 24 issues are remarkable. And as a matter of fact, this upcoming summer, those are about to be reprinted in that huge, I forget the name. Someone in the chat help me out with the name of what they call that. Is it called the art style or where they're in these huge, like treasury size versions where the artwork is massively blown up.
Right.
And that's happening for Wonder Woman's Perez run this upcoming summer. I think it's got $125 US retail on it. So, but it's going to be worth it.
How thick is it? How many issues is it?
I don't remember. I just kind of glanced at the solicitation and went, yeah, I'm going to get that for sure.
Would it double up as a door kind of thing? You could
yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear. All right. So have you got I'm not sure. So have you an individual favorite story of Wonder Woman? Did we ask that one already?
No, we haven't. There was a story called The Contest, and it was done in Volume 1 originally as a 2-issue story arc where an Amazon named Orana became the new Wonder Woman. She defeated Diana in a rematch of The Contest and went to Man's World. I love that story. And then in Volume 2, they expanded upon that with a character named Artemis, who essentially was the same story, but much more expanded on. And from issue 90 through issue 100, they focused on that. And that was an amazing artist edition. Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you. That was an amazing story, though, The Contest. It's one of my favorites.
Got two answers.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I was just blanking.
I've never heard of it, so I wouldn't have been able to help you there. I didn't realize they come in that sort of size, but maybe we don't get them over here. I don't know. We're kind of like slightly sort of poor neighbours, like when it comes to like getting all the comic books. We certainly don't have the wealth of back issues in like some of our shops. There's got a couple of comics at the moment I'm trying to get, like, and I don't know if they ever came over here, but they're only ever available on eBay from America. It's like, what a pain in the butt.
What are you looking for?
Oh, just silly little things like Doorway to Nightmare number 5. So it seems to be number 5s. Doorway to Nightmare number 5. Can't find it anywhere in the UK. And Still the Indestructible Man number 5. It's like $2 in America, but like you can't find it anywhere. Like, but it's like $30 to get it sent to me. So it's like I'll have to just wait eventually.
Well, do me a favor and sometime on Instagram send me pictures of the covers. So just in case I come across them.
You probably flip through them a million times or something. Yeah, it's just weird. We don't sort of get so many like good back issues. I certainly don't see it. Never seen any gold and like certain companies like only DC and Marvel and obviously Image now, but a lot of the like Gold Keys and stuff like that. I never saw any of them like in the comic books or even Charlton. I never saw any Charlton until very, very recently. But anyway, that's
what is the oldest comic book in your collection?
I think it's 1950, but I'm not sure because it's a classics comic, classic illustrated, whatever it's called. The reprints of like it's the I think it's 1950. It's but I got the English version, so it might have been later. I didn't realize that. I got the wrong bloody one. But it's the Green Mansions, which was the first appearance of Rima the Jungle Girl, and there's also a film with was it Audrey Hepburn, I think. But it was because I didn't realize as well. She's the first. She predates Tarzan. She's older than Tarzan. So it's like one of the earliest jungle people, I suppose.
Jungle swingers. Swingers.
Yeah, I think she did an awful lot of swinging in the comic book though. But it was one of those ones like I had a copy that I don't have no idea where it came from, where I got it from. But in my collection for ages, I was going through my comic books and I was like, well, these ones I want to get rid of, or do I want to try and get the run? And I saw that one. I thought, I don't remember if I've read this, but it's a nice cover. And I was like, I'm going to pick up the rest. When I found there's about 5 or something in the run 7, I think. Well, I'll buy this. And when I actually got them all and started reading it, I was really impressed with it. I thought, that's really good. It wasn't nothing like I expected. I expected it to be like a a Shanna, even though I'm not with them, it's just like I thought would be like a female version of Tarzan, but she was much more she was kind of a half swamp thing because she got control over the animals and sort of like it's just like a ethereal kind of like a wood nymph or something like that, but not quite so magical. But she was just like I really dug that, and that's what made me want to go pick up the classic Comics Illustrated of her first appearance. Like, and I like Rima.
Cool. Yeah, I like Rima too. I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I picked out one more book, and okay, so I started out with Marvel, then I went DC, and I thought I'm going to close with Marvel. And I'm going to preface this before I show this by saying, listen to my story about this before you start hating on me on this book. Okay. So here we go. I picked Avengers Number 200. And now I know this is a very controversial story, and that's not why I picked it. It's just comic book memories. When I was a kid, I mean, all of my favorite Avengers are on this cover and in this issue. And, you know, I knew of Ms. Marvel a little bit. Ms. Marvel in the Black Lightning Bolt costume is my jam. And I knew she was going to go away in this story, and I remember feeling sad about that. And, you know, later on, I understand how maybe this issue shouldn't have been written the way it was written. But there's something about this story. There's something about this cover. How cool is it that George Perez did the cover for Avengers Number 200, and he did the cover for Justice League Number 200?
Oh,
that's pretty cool. You know, that he got to do both of those. Like I said, these are all of my favorite Avengers here on one cover. So I knew I was probably going to pick an Avengers book somewhere, somehow, and it's a thicker than normal issue. I remember getting this and reading the heck out of this. This is a replacement copy I had to buy because my original was worn out. Same thing with, the annual with the first appearance of Rogue too. My Avengers Annual 10 is very worn out as well, and I had to replace that too. But I picked that book not only so I'd have another Marvel, but when I started going through my Avengers, I thought maybe I shouldn't pick the story or this issue because of the story of what happens. But then the more I went through, I said, but that's the one as a kid that it's the artwork, it's the characters, it's Ms. Marvel heavy, and I like her so much. So that's why I ended up going with that.
Do you remember it as being controversial at the time? People talking about it as being, I think it's one of those things that people have looked at it in a different light, nowadays. I just sort of take it. I mean, I've read the story. I've got the comic, but I just take it that the guy her son who come back to
her son. Yeah, Magnus.
To become his own father or something. There was some weird stuff going, but that kind of weird nonsense always happened in the comic books. Yeah. I just took it as maybe he'd used some kind of mental powers to make everyone not think of it as being a problem. I can only imagine that would be the But I mean, because he's supposed to have had mental sort of a hold on her, didn't they? If it's what they said.
Yeah.
Eventually. So you can only assume that he had a mental hold over all the others as well, and that's why they were being so flippant about it.
Yeah, and she had such a brief pregnancy too, And see, as a kid, I didn't have the issues leading up. I think it was 2 issues prior to that, she found out she was pregnant. And then, and then they're not saying 9 months had passed here. They're saying that what's going on, it's, she's been pregnant for maybe a month and then she gives birth. And so here I don't have as a kid at the time, I didn't have the issues leading up to this, but I had this story and I'm like, hold up, I didn't have the last 2 issues, but I had maybe the 3rd or 4th one before that. And you weren't pregnant in that. And I'm like, once again, I'm like, something is going on here with a character that I really enjoyed. And I was intrigued. And like Phoenix in the first book I showed, she's in distress. Like Phoenix, she's also wearing a costume with a big satchel hanging down on the side. And I don't know, there was something, the 3-day pregnancy. Something about just about that story though, and just the fact that all of the Avengers were involved and they weren't going off teaming up in pairs of 2 and 3 and going to do this and this. They all were together in this issue. And
time shenanigans going on, weren't there? Because dinosaurs and pirates and all sorts.
Yeah.
But pregnancies in comic books, I always wanted to find out the Fantastic Four, because I know how slow Franklin has aged, and like I think my birthday book of Fantastic Four had been born but hadn't been named yet, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder how long she was actually pregnant, and how many issues before like saying she's pregnant to actually giving birth. Actually, was it done in 9 months, for example, or was it like strung out over like 50 issues or something like that? Actual pregnancy. I always wondered what happened with that. And also, I was thinking of the parallels, some slight parallels with Troya, isn't there? Because she ended up having a son who sent people back. No. People, because she ended up being a tyrant in the future, and so Team Titans came back to try and kill her before her son was born or raised or something like that. Yeah. So there was some sort of shenanigans with that, and I think he came up coming back. Is a good word. All shenanigans in these comic book stories. That's another actual controversial thing that people talk about is her relationship with Terry Long, was it? Yeah,
Terry Long.
Yeah. That whole relationship, people look back on that as like, oh, that was a bit, don't they nowadays? Like he was a professor, and she was quite a few years younger.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of examples of that kind of thing in comic books where it's like, maybe that shouldn't have happened like that.
Yeah, probably. But the good thing about at least with Fantastic Four, as you mentioned, when Sue was pregnant, we got. The lineup changed a little bit. They'd bring in Crystal, who would replace her, or Medusa, and that was always kind of cool too. I liked it when the FF. I mean, I like the original FF, and it's good to have the core FF. But sometimes I like mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, like sometimes the Thing would go away, or he'd lose his power. The Thing always it was always like, oh, I don't want to be the Thing. I hate being a monster. And as soon as he loses his powers, I haven't got to be the Thing.
Yeah.
He was like, make your mind up, Ben, for God's sake.
Yeah, you don't want it until you can't have it anymore.
Yeah, so the grass is always greener on the other side, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right, you got anything else you want to mention about that book? Otherwise, it's gone over an hour. I should go and have me dinner.
All I wanted to say is, in addition to thank you for having me on today, is for those that aren't familiar, I do have my own YouTube channel where with content that I've created. It's more than just Wonder Woman 2, but it is a lot of Bronze Age stuff. So if you wouldn't mind heading over and looking for Magic Lasso, checking out a video or so, if you would subscribe, the link is in the description, which I appreciate, down below. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, that certainly would mean the world to me. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and I'm meeting a lot of awesome people too. So certainly would appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. And if anyone wants to come and have a chat with me, I'm booked ahead quite a lot in advance now, but that's cool. I'm trying to do one a week. I can't remember who next. Let's have a look at my little thing for who's coming up next week. Oh no, I haven't got that window open at the moment. Okay. But someone's coming up next week.
Someone.
So make sure you tune in for someone, because they're really cool people too. That's it, really. Check out Cover Slingers on Saturday and all my other videos, and check out Magic Lasso's videos. And cheers for coming on, mate.
Well, it's been a pleasure getting to hang with you, and thank you again for having me on. And I'd love to come back anytime that you want me.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye. All right, cheers.